Max Verstappen's future at Red Bull is hanging by a thread, and the FIA just lit the fuse. New documents show major regulation breaches, staff are leaving in silence, and the entire 2026 project is now under threat. Insiders close to Jos Verstappen say trust inside Red Bull is broken and Max could trigger his exit clause before the season even starts. We've got the real story behind the leaks, the politics, and the fallout. So smash that subscribe button, because this drama is about to blow up and you won't want to miss what comes next. Red Bull Racing is entering dangerous territory not on the track, but behind closed doors. A recent FIA investigation has uncovered serious technical irregularities tied to the team's 2026 power unit development, and it's sending shockwaves across the paddock. Once hailed as the most structured and dominant team in the sport, Red Bull now finds itself under the microscope for reasons no one inside the factory is publicly addressing. The leak was unexpected. The implications? Even worse. The FIA's findings point toward unauthorized hybrid testing data linked directly to early simulations of Red Bull's next-generation ERS deployment. This isn't about pushing gray areas. This is about crossing technical boundaries that were supposed to guarantee a level playing field before 2026. If these reports hold, Red Bull may have violated specific pre-homologation limits, an act that could strip them of both development credibility and competitive fairness. What caught many off guard was the timing. Just as Red Bull was preparing its most aggressive early rollout plan for 2026, the FIA delivered a quiet but firm warning: submit all internal telemetry logs for external audit. That demand alone triggered a flurry of changes within Red Bull's technical departments. Key personnel were reshuffled. Several engineers involved in energy storage modeling were abruptly removed from the project. In Formula One, that's never a good sign. And then came the Verstappen factor. Max Verstappen, still under contract until 2028, reportedly held back-to-back meetings with Red Bull's engineering leadership not for technical updates, but for clarity. His tone, described by insiders as firm and surgical, suggests a driver no longer asking questions but demanding answers. Verstappen has always been loyal, but his loyalty has one condition: control. And when control disappears, Max starts thinking long-term and elsewhere. Jos Verstappen's influence cannot be overstated in this moment. Sources familiar with the situation say Jos has privately expressed serious concern about the team's internal direction, going so far as to float the idea that Red Bull needs to decide who they're building this car for, themselves or Max. That comment, subtle on the surface, is a nuclear warning. Because Jos knows Max doesn't wait. He walks. Meanwhile, rival teams have begun to position themselves. Ferrari is already reviewing its contractual options for 2027. Mercedes, known for playing a longer strategic game, has remained quiet publicly but is reportedly tracking Verstappen's dissatisfaction closely. If Max so much as hints at his availability, the grid will realign instantly. And if Red Bull loses Verstappen, the fallout wouldn't just be sporting, it would be financial, reputational, and structural. This entire scenario is unfolding rapidly. What started as a regulatory check may now unravel the most dominant driver-team partnership in recent memory. Verstappen's trust is fading, the FIA is digging deeper, and Red Bull's internal silence is beginning to feel less like strategy, and more like panic. For fans who thought 2026 would start with a Red Bull dynasty, the reality could be the exact opposite: the end of an empire, triggered before the lights even go out. The FIA's audit began as a routine compliance check tied to hybrid system development across all teams. But what started as protocol quickly escalated when inspectors found discrepancies in Red Bull's power unit simulation logs. Specifically, certain energy deployment cycles recorded during off-season testing were outside the permissible development window. That triggered an immediate flag, not only because of the data itself, but because of how and where it was applied within Red Bull's systems. What concerned the FIA most was the timing of the simulation output in relation to physical component tests. Evidence suggests that Red Bull may have moved beyond the digital-only stage of development and transitioned into partial hardware validation, a clear breach of current technical regulations. The 2026 rules are designed to give all teams equal access to preseason data windows. If Red Bull pushed their hybrid package into real-world testing while others were still modeling, that's not just an error, it's a structural advantage. The documents leaked to the FIA include energy throughput maps, thermal modeling overlays, and battery cooling profiles that align far too closely with actual component runs in Milton Keynes. The level of detail in the data, especially the correlation between simulation and real-world torque curves, suggests not just preparation, but integration. In a regulatory era defined by transparency and controlled development phases, this would be viewed as intentional overreach. Adding fuel to the fire, several senior engineers involved in Red Bull's hybrid systems were found to have worked on experimental setups that were never disclosed in official FIA briefings. That alone may not have triggered sanctions, but paired with the internal documents and overlapping component behavior, it paints a picture the FIA cannot ignore. The concern now is not whether Red Bull gained an advantage but how long they may have had it without anyone noticing. Other teams have jumped on the opportunity. McLaren and Mercedes have filed official requests for transparency measures, demanding that the FIA enforce a rollback on any components derived from unauthorized simulations. That could delay Red Bull's 2026 chassis schedule by months and force them to discard systems already factored into their aero packaging and structural design. A setback like that, this late in development, is catastrophic. Red Bull's public stance remains defiant. The team insists the data in question was experimental, not performance-focused, and unrelated to final race architecture. But that narrative is weakening. The FIA has already confirmed that certain telemetry matches simulation models that should not have been linked. If those systems made it into the early Verstappen test car even in partial form, it could mean fines, development restrictions, or test bans. But perhaps more dangerous than any sanction is the trust that's already been eroded inside the paddock, inside the FIA, and most critically, inside Verstappen's own team. Because once regulators start reviewing logs, interviewing engineers, and threatening competitive sanctions, it's no longer a technical matter. It's a leadership crisis. And in this case, the leader they stand to lose is the one man keeping Red Bull on top. Inside Red Bull's headquarters, the mood has shifted from innovation to insulation. Following the FIA's escalation, multiple internal meetings were held behind closed doors, with department leads told to prepare formal technical justifications for every stage of the 2026 power unit roadmap. Engineers in the hybrid and electrical integration teams were reportedly ordered to freeze all work involving simulation crossover systems. This isn't normal procedure. It's a strategic pause, one meant to limit further exposure while the FIA's audit widens. Max Verstappen, known for keeping a focused, low-drama approach, has broken that rhythm. He is no longer treating this as a team issue, he is treating it as a personal threat to his career. Sources inside Red Bull describe him as increasingly direct during internal briefings. He has asked for raw technical data logs, internal review timelines, and even legal summaries of what the FIA has the power to do next. That level of detail, from a driver, signals something deeper: distrust. Jos Verstappen's tone is even sharper. He has not addressed the media officially, but behind the scenes, team advisors suggest Jos is furious not just about the FIA, but about how Red Bull allowed this to spiral. Jos was instrumental in shaping Max's loyalty to the team over the years. But when the integrity of that environment is compromised, Jos sees it as a betrayal. He has reportedly contacted legal consultants and F1 intermediaries about Red Bull's contractual obligations and Verstappen's options. Red Bull's leadership is now walking a dangerous tightrope. Christian Horner is trying to project calm, but internally he's under enormous pressure to preserve not just the team's performance structure, but Verstappen's trust. Meanwhile, Helmut Marko is said to be skeptical about how transparent the team should be with the FIA. That divide is critical. If leadership can't align, the team's response becomes fragmented and Verstappen sees every delay as a reason to prepare his exit strategy. From the outside, Verstappen's contract seems ironclad through 2028. But insiders know better. The deal includes performance and compliance clauses, a safety net Verstappen insisted on during negotiations. If Red Bull is found to have compromised its 2026 car through improper development, those clauses could be activated. It would mean Max walks with no penalty and rival teams would swarm immediately. Mercedes, Ferrari, even Aston Martin. All have budget and structure in place. This moment is as much about image as it is performance. Verstappen's dominance is built on precision, legality, and total control. If Red Bull's car is branded as a rule bender, even temporarily, Max's legacy takes collateral damage. And he knows it. He's not just protecting his 2026 title chances. He's protecting his long-term brand. Sponsors, global partners, and personal performance teams are already mapping out what-if scenarios. That level of preparation doesn't happen unless an exit is on the table. And now, we're at the tipping point. The audit continues. The FIA isn't backing down. Red Bull can't confirm a clean sheet. And Verstappen, the calm, controlled driver who once promised a future with one team, is now questioning everything. If Red Bull loses him, they lose more than a driver. They lose their identity, their dominance, and their credibility. And once that goes, recovery becomes a long, painful road, if it's possible at all.